everyone, welcome back to Mongrels Garage, where today we're doing something a little bit different. We are going to tackle the mystery mystique of driving a manual transmission vehicle. Yes, we are going to give you the secret to making the gear change. Now, this might be because you're a young, inspiring enthusiast just getting into the classic cars and you've never been exposed to one and you want to know how to drive it. Well, we'll go through that. Or perhaps you're an inspiring car thief and that hand-foot coordination has kept you from getting the employment you want from your questionable employer.
Mongrels Garage does not support or condone car theft or any other sort of theft. As a matter of fact, we find it rather reprehensible and would ask that you avoid such behavior.
Yeah, hope you're not one of those. Don't be one of those. All right, let's get into this.
You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me.
Now, as I said in the intro, we're going to get you to driving a manual transmission vehicle and the biggest secret to doing that. But before we do that, we're going to get into how these work, some of the theories and the tips and the tricks, and the concept behind the transmission, and most importantly, the clutch. Because if you understand that, you'll understand the rest of this. But what vehicle are we going to use? Let's figure that out. So perhaps we'll use our 68 Chevy C10 truck. Got a 307 V8 in it, and most importantly, it's got the manual transmission right there. We've got a clutch, and we know that works, but yeah, no windshield, and it's a little cold out, so perhaps we'll go look for something else. Maybe our 67 small window Chevy truck. It's got a manual transmission as well, and a straight six in it. Yeah, we're not going to use this. It needs a little work yet. Okay, next. Perhaps we'll use this 92 Firebird. It's got a nice strong 305 V8 and a 5-speed in it. I'm sure it'll be, oh, nope. Oh. Well, I guess that leaves us with our 78 Trans Am with the 400 and the 4-speed. Now, it's got a flat tire and it hasn't run in a bit, but I think that's stuff we can overcome, and it smells okay. So I'm going to get to putting a battery in this, see if we can get it fired up, and then we'll teach you how to drive a standard transmission car. Now, this car came from the factory with a Pontiac 400 with the W72 package, which meant it was the 220 horse with about 325 foot-pounds of torque. Get the battery in it here. And of course I put it in backwards. This terminal has seen better days. Fortunately, we've got the fix for that. Right here. There we go. Now let's see if it'll crank, shall we? This battery dead. Alright, battery number 2. That was this fun to get in. I can just imagine how fun it's going to be to get this out. There we go. Oh, that's got juice. Let's try this again. Yeah. Secured. Well, it's not entirely happy, but it is running. Let's do it anyways. Well, we got problem number 1 taken care of. We got it running, sort of, after this tire. You know what, that might not be flat. That's just in ice. Okay. Let's see if we can get that truck out of the way. See if we can get this car to move. We got the truck running. What I'm going to put the truck where the charger is in case the truck needs the fuel pump done, then we got someplace to work on it. I'd say that's the fuel pump. Okay, let's get this car moved, if we can. Alright, now that we got the car running pretty good, it's time to teach you the secret to driving a standard. Right after I explain a little bit of the theory. Let's get into that. The brake and the gas, most people are familiar with. This one is the tricky one. And we're going to get into something called the friction point. Okay, let's talk about the magic that makes this all work. The clutch. And here are some of its main components. We got the flywheel, we got the pressure plate, we got the friction disc, and we have a release bearing, throw-out bearing, and that I just dropped and probably no good now. First thing we're going to discuss is the flywheel. It mounts on the back of your crank. This flywheel will mount right on the back of our crank at the back of the engine right there. And you can see that's got a flex plate on it right now. It's much thinner than our flywheel. It's set up for an automatic transmission. If we were to put this on, we set it up for a manual transmission and a clutch. And it turns with the engine. What comes next is this friction disc, and it's going to sit on the flywheel like that. And normally it's going to be sandwiched between here and the pressure plate, which we'll get into in a minute, and it's going to go. But when you put a little bit of pressure on the fingers of the pressure plate, it'll take the pressure off the disc and it won't sandwich it, and it'll be able to spin freely without the engine turning the disc. So imagine this is our transmission shaft. It's splined. It's going to go in here like this. And when this disc turns, it turns the shaft, which turns the transmission. So when this disc isn't turning, the transmission's not turning. Pretty simple, really. Now, the pressure plate, which is our next component we're going to look at, is right here. This is essentially a huge spring that puts a lot of pressure on the friction disc so that it gets sandwiched. You can see it has a wear surface as well. And here is the release bearing. And what that does is when you have a lever that pushes on these fingers, takes the spring tension off, which releases the disc, pulls it away from the flywheel, and then no longer turns the transmission. So when I'm talking about the friction point, it's the point where you're putting just enough pressure on here that it just starts trying to turn this disc. And it's just sandwiching it enough, but it's allowing it to slip a little bit. That's the friction point. That's where the engine starts to turn the transmission, starts to turn this friction disc. Now that we know that, let's go take a look at the car. Let's talk about our three friends down here. Two of these you're usually already familiar with. We got our gas pedal and our brake pedal. But you can see that the brake pedal here, it's a little smaller than on most automatic transmissions. And that's so we have room for the clutch pedal. Now, this is the tricky one, and we're going to talk about the friction point. We already discussed that a little bit when we were talking about the clutch components, but how does it work? So when we have our foot on the brake and we step on the clutch, we've pushed that release bearing into those springs. We've released the pressure on the pressure plate, and it's allowing the disc to turn freely from the engine. As we let our foot up, it puts less and less pressure on that release bearing, and there will come a point where you can feel the engine start to bog down a bit, and that's the friction point. So you sit there and you play with your clutch a bit, and you figure out where your friction point is. It'll be someplace in the travel. And once you have that, you can hold it on the friction point, let the clutch slip a bit, and you can even take your foot off the brake and the car won't usually roll. And if you let it out a little bit more, a bit slower, the car will start to move if it's got enough torque. And to increase the torque, you give it some gas. So I've got a special guest that we're going to bring in, and we're going to get him to demonstrate this. Let's get into that. Proof of concept. This is my son Logan. Get his learners. We're going to teach him how to drive a standard. Are you ready, Logan?
Not really.
Well, you will be. Now, I've given him the same instructions as I've given all you. So let's see how it goes. So what is the key thing for driving a standard? What did I just teach you about?
Friction point.
Friction point. All right, so explain to us what that is. We're in first gear right now, and we're looking down at your feet at the clutch. You got your one foot on the brake, your right foot's on the brake, and your left foot is on the clutch. So find the friction point for me. Taking it out very slow. Right there, you found it. Okay. You hear the engine kind of idle down a bit, right? Now take your foot off the brake. Put it over towards the gas. Now let your foot slowly off the clutch. No, too fast. Okay, clutch all the way in. Brake on, clutch all the way in. Start the car. Find the friction point again. Okay, foot off brake. Now, out very slow. Don't let the engine stall. There you go, we're moving. Now put it, you can let it out all the way. Oh, no, getting good though. That's only your second try, man. You got the car moving, it's awesome. Okay, again, friction point. Okay, foot off brake. Slowly let the clutch out. Don't give it a little bit of gas, just a little bit. No, don't let that clutch up too fast. A little trickier, isn't it? How's it going over there? All right, friction point. Keep your foot on the. Now this time we're gonna give it a little gas to make it easy. No gas yet. Find the friction point first. Friction point first. Now a little bit of gas, not too much. Okay, yeah. A little gas, clutch out, gas, clutch out, clutch way out. There you go. We're moving. Look at that.
Out to the rotor field.
Okay, now stop. Oh, I didn't tell you that part. Guess what you gotta do in a manual transmission car when you stop?
Put the clutch.
Put the clutch in. Okay, clutch in. Oh, now we're on a hill. This gets really tricky. Okay, and we're on ice and snow. Okay, you're gonna have to keep your foot on the brake. Find the friction point. You find it? Now this car's got enough torque. You let your foot off the brake, get it over on the clutch. Oh, you let the clutch out too much. Do it again. Okay. There we go. Find the, okay, foot off the brake on gas. Give it a little bit of gas. Yeah, you gotta get gas sooner. Alright. Find that friction with the car. If you have the right friction point, the car will hold itself, okay? You just gotta find that balance. So that's the key. Get that friction point right. Okay, there you go. Might be a little much. Again, a little bit of gas. Start letting the clutch out. There you go. You got it. Nice and smooth. On the hill, in the snow. Okay, shall we try stopping again? What do we got to do if we stop?
Put the clutch in.
All right, stop. Very good. Much improved already. We're not going to do a gear change yet. We're going to practice this friction point for a while, okay? Let's see if we can start again. Oh, too much. All right. You'll get used to that friction point. You'll get better and better at it, okay? Let it out just a little bit. There it is. Get back over that gas. There you go. Nice. How's that feel?
Good.
Yeah. Stay out of the deep snow though. There you go. Oh, here comes another hill. You're in the deep snow again. Get over there into the tracks. Okay. Stop. Clutch. Clutch. Yeah. Get that clutch in first and then the brake, okay? You think you can start on this hill now? Anything coming? Nothing that way. Nothing that way. Okay, find our friction point. All right, look, we're on quite the little hill here, and to slip up. Oh, awesome! Didn't even roll back. Good job. Turn. Oh yeah, go that way. You're going that way. Go that way. How's that? You got it already. Look at that. Good job. Should we try gear change? Don't do anything till I tell you what to do, because we haven't tried that yet. So you got to take your foot off the gas, then you're going to push the clutch in, you're going to pull straight down, then you're going to let the clutch out, put your foot back on the gas. You get all that?
Yeah.
Okay, foot off gas, clutch in, straight down, clutch out. There you go. Gear change. Second gear. Nice. Want to go for third? Third's up and up over here. Go ahead. Good job. Not too fast. Slow it down. Still learning how to drive. How's that feel?
Good.
You're driving a standard already. Look at that. Like 10 minutes. That's it. That's all it took me to teach you. Okay, let's slow down. Now we're going to try gearing down. You ready for that? So this is going to be foot off gas, clutch in, pull it back into second, and then clutch out, and the car will slow itself down. Go ahead. That's fourth.
Oh, it is?
Yep. Pay attention to the road. Don't pay attention to your gear shifts. There you go. Okay, now you're back in second. So up here we're going to pull in and turn around and go back. Okay. Good job.
Here.
Yep. Brake, clutch. Yeah, just pull it in here. Yep. Get it back in first. Okay.
Okay, Dad's gonna drive now.
You ready?
Yes.
All right. Still goes okay. He needs a bit of a tune-up. I smell a little bit of mouse. Okay, clean that up. Gross. Mouse nest up there, maybe. I'll get this headliner down. On the virus. Starter's getting a little questionable on the car, so that's why we shut it down for now, but successful first attempt at driving a manual transmission. We'll take you out, do a little bit more. What do you think about that?
Good.
Yeah, it didn't take you long to get it. It even did hill starts. It's awesome. It's easier in this car because it's got lots of torque. You can get in a little four-cylinder, it gets a little more difficult, but you got the concept. Friction point, right?
Yeah.
You learn that, the rest just comes easier. There you go. That's how you drive a manual transmission vehicle. And if you enjoyed the video or you got some tips out of it, go ahead and hit the like button. We invite you to do that. It really helps out the channel. Now, to wrap things up, you've seen how I invited my son out. He had never driven a manual transmission car before. He's actually hasn't driven much before. And we got him driving this car in about 5-10 minutes. He understood the concept of the friction point and how that works. And he was able to drive the car, switch gears. Now, that being said, it does take some practice to get better at it. And there are different ways of switching gears in transmission. We're not going to cover them in this video, but you'll hear terms like granny shifting, double clutching, power shifting, slam shifting, different terms like that, that you can do some research, get into it, see what those are, what they mean, when you might use them. And there's just a whole slew of stuff that you can go down. But there's the basics, and if you understand the friction point, you're good to go. You find the friction point in whichever car you're in, and as long as you know where that is, you'll get a good feel for everything, and you're off to the races, quite literally. All right, hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.